What up, Ho Biscuits? It's your girl Skitten, back at it again. I had a really difficult day today. Due to technical difficulties, I spent 3 hours editing a single video. For context, it typically doesn't take me more than an hour, and that hour is if I'm doing something crazy in the edits, right? Which I don't have a lot of skills, so I don't do that much. My personality is my skill, right? Not my editing prowess. But anyway, I spent 3 hours editing a single video today, and it was only supposed to take me like an hour. So it put me 3 hours behind for the rest of my day. So now I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh my God, I gotta scramble to get all this stuff done. And I'm just slowly accepting that like everything is not gonna get done. Everything is not gonna get done. And I'm just gonna be okay with it because the only other option is to cry. And I don't feel like crying. Mostly because I already cried today when I was watching Grey's Anatomy, which you would think I wouldn't cry because I've already seen the episode that I cried in, but I did. I cried. I know it's embarrassing and I'm really glad no one was around to see it, but now you guys know about it because I talk too much. Anti-Hoozins, I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are staying safe and sanitized. My day was difficult, so I'm very, very ready to sit back, relax, and watch episode 2 of Extra History's The Great Emu War. This episode is called Beaks versus Bullets. If you guys haven't already seen my reaction to episode 1, I'm gonna go ahead and put a little thingy up here to watch it, where you can just click on it and watch it, and then come back to this video and watch this video. And then, yeah, we'll see you then. Anyways, very excited to see what this video has in store. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started.
Western Australia, November 2nd, 1932.
Okay.
For months, the soldiers turned wheat farmers of Campion and Wagulin have suffered the depredations of the terrible emu.
Right.
After a vigorous mating season, the gangly, rambunctious birds had migrated west, dashing their massive bodies against wire fences until they fell, then trampling the precious crops under the ecstatic dance of their sharp claws.
Yeah.
With conventional methods of bird deterrence failing, the farmers found themselves chasing down flocks of emus in their cars and on bicycles. Waving sticks at the birds, who were so gleefully wiping out their livelihoods by spraying urine across hard-grown rows of wheat.
Disgusting.
But there were so many emu, and they were so fast, all seemed lost. That is, until a transport came over the horizon, carrying 3 soldiers from the 7th Heavy Battery of the Royal Australian Artillery, and 2 mighty machine guns.
Jesus!
Ah, yes! The farmers rejoiced. Perhaps they had lost the emu battle. But today was the dawn of the Emu War. Thanks so much to HelloFresh for continuing to help us bring history to the table. At 45 years old, Major Gwyneth Meredith had seen some action, but not often against birds. Compared to the violence of the Great War, he considered this campaign more like a zoo visit.
Right.
And it's fairly easy, though not pretty, and, let's be honest, basically a dick move for a machine gun-toting soldier to shoot animals at a zoo. Meredith's plan was to hurt...
I was like, for him to help these farmers, but he said at a zoo. And I was just like, yeah, that would be awful to do. That would be an awful thing to do.
The emus together for quick killing, because while his Lewis guns were powerful, they were cumbersome and not easily mobile.
Right, you can't move
So with
a
the
lot.
farmer's help, he and his 2 soldiers attempted to shepherd a couple dozen emus into range of the guns. But the birds were not so easily corralled. Chased by Meredith, the flock split into smaller groups and fled, running
makes it
away
even
at
worse.
30 miles an hour. This might be harder than he thought. But surely not harder than fighting an enemy battalion or an aircraft. The targets these guns were designed to shoot. These were birds, and the bigger the bird, the easier it should be to hit with a machine gun, right? Well, most folks thought so anyway.
Right.
In fact, Meredith's superiors, right up to the Minister of Defense, had been so confident in the success of the mission that they'd sent a cameraman to capture propaganda footage of the culling and a request for 100 emu skins to make nice new hats for the boys back home. Thankfully, the following 2 days brought better luck. Meredith's guns downed a couple of targets, though this made no difference to emu morale, and the birds continued their devastation of the fields.
They just kept doing what they were doing.
Meredith had an epiphany. If he was going to deliver on expectations, he needed to start making bigger moves. So he planned an ambush at an emu watering hole.
What?
And this time, 1,000 emus walked into his trap.
Oh,
but
wow.
when Meredith gave the order to fire, the machine guns jammed.
God
Good thing the camera
damn
crew was
it.
there. By the time they cleared the jam, engaged the enemy, and held their breath for the dust to settle, the vaunted tools of modern war had killed only 12 emus.
Oh my God.
More were wounded, sure, but undeterred by the bullets lodged in their surprisingly tough hides, most managed to escape.
They said, "We
Meredith
out,
couldn't
bro."
believe how much punishment an emu could take without going down. If we had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, it would face any army in the world, he said. They can face machine gun fire with the invulnerability of tanks. Then the farmers shared their own hard-won wisdom. There's only one way to kill an emu. Shoot him through the back of the head. But Meredith would have to catch them first.
Right.
Giving up his ambush tactics, he mounted a gun on a truck and chased the emus down. But the birds were still faster, and the ground too bumpy for the gunner to shoot with any accuracy. Also, by now, the birds were keeping to smaller groups, almost strategically, almost as though they had a leader. In
Oh
each
my
pack,
God.
the soldiers observed a, quote, big black-plumed bird, which stands fully 6 feet high and keeps watch while his mates carry out their work of destruction and warns them of our approach. And it was at this moment of despair, a moment in which one comes to believe in the existence of an emu commander and intelligence chief, that Meredith and his men were ordered back home immediately.
They said, "You're done. You're done. You have failed too many times. You're done. You're out. Get out of here." Oh, I'm dead.
Just as things were getting worse, and the emus were descending in greater force upon Campion, had mighty Australia surrendered. Meanwhile, in Parliament, members had been asking the Prime Minister uncomfortable questions.
Like what?
Was an emu war really the best way to deal with a pest control problem? Who was paying for it? Oh, and also, wasn't all of this just incredibly silly?
Okay, but what do you want me to do if the emus are eating all of the freaking wheat? I couldn't remember what the crop was, and I almost said people. Like, if the emus were eating people, I feel like they probably would not be tripping about the fact that they're using machine guns. But what do you want him to do? Like, really, what do you want him to do? Just let the emus eat all the wheat?
Yes. Yes, it was. In Parliament, the opposition called it a farce, and the press reported that the emus were more than holding their own in the war, which I think we can all agree is a very bad look.
Yeah.
So George Pierce, the Minister of Defense, officially declared the emu war over, with only 300 birds dead.
But you
Turns out,
lost.
nobody in the army would be getting any new hats after all.
Damn.
This decision, while politically expedient, was terrible news for the settlers of Campion and
Right,
Wagram,
'cause what are they
whereas
supposed to
the
do?
emus, now emboldened, continued their ravages. So once again, the farmers begged for assistance, dispatching urgent telegrams from the very much still active battlefront. Emus beginning reappear large numbers, wired one farmer in Campion, and from Waggerlin. We urgently desire Lewis gun crew to assist here. Enormous number of emus doing untold damage. All right, back to square one then.
Right,
Almost.
because you have to do
Because
something
what the
still.
farmers had now was an ally, a convert in Major Gwyneth Meredith. For he had been transformed by what he'd seen in the West. The damage done by these birds has to be seen to be believed, Meredith protested to his superiors. Sitting behind one's desk, he said, one could not imagine the horrors of the emu war.
You've never been. You haven't seen what I've seen. You've never been where I've been. You don't know what I know about these fucking birds. Oh my God, you bureaucrats. You don't know anything about war.
The birds were nigh invulnerable and poised to bring Australia to the brink of agricultural catastrophe. They needed to be stopped. He needed to stop them.
I must break
And
you.
so, in the interest of agriculture, Pierce agreed to redeploy Meredith and his men to the front lines.
Okay.
In an attempt to bring an honorable end, once and for all, to the Emu War.
That you already said was over.
13th, 1932. Many men fear emasculation, but few know how it feels to be emasculated by an emu that is emusculated. Meredith, by
Not
contrast, had been emusculated hard by the big birds in a theater of war. So now his response was to drown the desert in blood. His first day back, Meredith killed 40 emus. And by December, he and his men were putting down 100 a week. As he
100 a
did,
week?
George Pierce was asked in Parliament, was there not a more humane method to cull the troublesome emus?
What do you want them to do? What do you want them to do? I don't. Y'all are asking dumb questions. Y'all are asking dumb questions.
Poison, perhaps. Maybe stronger fences? To which Pierce replied that he thought machine guns were pretty humane. On December 10th, 1932, they declared their mission accomplished. Meredith and his soldiers returned home in triumph, claiming to have killed 986 emus, with a further 2,500 mortally wounded.
Okay, but
the Emu War had been won by the humans. Australian humans. I mean, who's to say how any other nation would have done? And yet, once the belligerence and bloodlust had diminished with time, people still did think, you know, that was very silly. Yeah. And George Pierce's enemies never let him forget it, calling him the minister for the Emu War, even as he specifically never brought it up again.
Right.
There are many officials and experts who can't bear to be reminded of some of the more ambitious efforts at emu destruction, wrote Sydney's Sunday Herald years later. And sure, it's embarrassing to be shown up by a bunch of emus, but maybe it's more embarrassing to get so worked up about it that you try to drive an entire species to near extinction with high-caliber automatic weapons. Or was the most embarrassing thing of all that it wasn't enough?
Right.
The emus returned time and time again to Campion and Waugalan, their feathers laden with lead, but figuratively unruffled. And when the farmers petitioned the government for another emu war, the answer this time was no. Not a problem, the farmers said. What if we just dropped bombs on them instead? You know, like from a plane.
Bombs.
Again, a hard no. Unwarranted was the word they used. So in the end, nobody got what they wanted. By supporting the Emu War, George Pierce had hoped to quell a secession movement in the state of Western Australia. But in 1933, the state went ahead and voted for it anyway, only to be told by the United Kingdom that secession was illegal.
What do you mean it's illegal?
Western Australia voted Pierce out of his Senate seat.
Well.
And in just a few decades, neglected by central government, the towns of Campion and Waugalan withered up and died.
Oh, that's sad.
Campion today is a ghost town. No wheat, no farmers, no soldiers, nothing. Well, except maybe you'll see an emu or two. A little slower now, you know? A little grayer. Just pecking and peeing at the lone desert sands where there was once a town. One can only imagine a single thought crossing their bird brains. Heck around and find out.
Not heck around and find out. Is that the end of it? Is it over? It just ends just like that? Or is there more? There's only 2 videos? Boo! Boo! I wanted more! I wanted more chaos and destruction at the hands of fucking flightless birds. Oh my goodness. That is so embarrassing. That is so embarrassing because I'm pretty sure in the first video, they said it was something like 20,000 emus, right? And at the end of it, they had only killed like, I think, a grand total of like 1,200? And they mortally wounded 2,500. But what does mortally wounded mean, really? Like, technically, mortally wounded means that, like, they should die of their injuries. But, like, how do we know? How do we know, you know? Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to leave your reaction requests and recommendations down in the comments below. If there's another extra history series that you guys want me to get started on, just let me know. I'm always down. I'm always down. Other than that, peace out, hope biscuits. It's Skittin' Lit.